What's up, guys? We're going to try something a little bit different and special for patrons only. We haven't sat down to write the review yet. We just got home from seeing the movie, and we're just going to talk about our immediate feelings. So, yeah, it's just going to be like a free-flow discussion. Nothing structured about this, and we're just going to have a conversation with each other mostly. But,
yeah.
Molly, did you like the movie?
I did. I liked the movie.
I also liked the movie. I had some issues with it, and we were talking about how it sometimes can feel like a lot of pressure to just even watch a Star Wars movie for the first time now. And like, I definitely felt like I had to watch The Last Jedi twice, and I kind of feel the same way about this one. But coming out of it, I just like, overall I liked it. I thought it was a very well executed and fun adventure, but I didn't come out feeling like super pumped. It was just like this was an adventure in Star Wars that happened to star Han.
Yeah. I thought the pacing was good. I thought it was a little bit too long, but that's just a thing that I have with movies. I think they're all way too long.
Molly prefers 80-minute movies.
Disney movies or like the
animated movies.
Perfect amount, yeah. Like, I have the attention span of a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
So, put me in front of a 2.5-hour movie, it's like... Okay.
I will say, like, I didn't really think about the length at all. I think that the pacing was pretty good. I felt like early on it was a little bit like Rogue One, and that it just jumped around a lot. And it wasn't that it was jumping from place to place. It was more like, we're really skipping through time here. And I guess we should have said that we're going to spoil all of it. We haven't spoiled anything yet, but I mean, I assume...
Big time spoilers.
Yeah, we're going to spoil this movie. But yeah, it felt like we were running through stuff at Corellia, and then we like jumped 3 years ahead, and we were running through stuff at Mimban, and then like the train sequence, which I thought was really good and cool and exciting, it happened so early in the movie. I was very surprised by that. I thought that was going to be like the climax of the film. So, I mean, yeah, the trailers really don't give away much at all. Like, I thought that I maybe had a handle on how the film would go, and I was totally wrong.
I didn't think that the train heist would be the climax of the film, and I'm glad that it happened fairly early on. Because like I said, with the pacing, there was like stuff happening every so often. It did still feel long, but it was entertaining me enough to keep me interested the whole time. But so there wasn't a crawl, but they did introduce a couple of lines of text to give you a little bit of an idea of what was going on, but it wasn't quite enough. I was like, why are all these kids here? Like, are they slaves? Like, why are Han and Kira so much older? And, like, where are the people their age at?
It did seem kind of like... maybe it would have been even less confusing without the blue text, like the extra stuff. It's
maybe, yeah, because then we were given some context and then just thrown into action.
Which the opening chase scene was pretty cool. I really like Han's blue speeder. Not really his, he stole it.
He's good at fake driving, like all the twists and turns and his face, like he's good at all the... I'm driving spaceships.
All the action was really, really great, and there's a lot of action. It's kind of nonstop, which I think part of it, and this was kind of my issue with Rogue One, is that I really love Star Wars for the characters. And when we watch The Force Awakens or the original trilogy, of course, like when you get introduced to new characters, you get to spend some time with them and see what they're about. And this was just kind of like action from the get-go. Let's go. And, like, I never really got a sense of Kira and who she was. I knew she was important to Han, and we already knew who Han was. So it just seemed like I wish I got more with almost all the characters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, I'm sure there's plenty of places where they could have cut stuff out that I am blanking on right now. But, yeah, a scene of, like, maybe them meeting for the first time, or, like, just something telling us, like, oh, they've known each other for this long, and now they're, like, together.
Yeah, like...
They're sweethearts.
Yeah. If we had seen Kira, maybe, in the early scenes and not Han, which I that would have been kind of strange, because it is Solo, but, like, if we just got to see her being kind to the other orphans, or protecting them or something. It was just everything had to do with her and Han, and I just wish that we got something with her. And the same is true for like Val and Rio and L3. I think they did a better job with, but like we get introduced to characters and we spend a little bit of time with them, and then they're dead.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that they killed Tandy Newton. She felt so wasted in this. Like, I wanted more from her. And by the way, I think the cast was great. There wasn't anyone in there.
I want to try to go in order.
Oh, okay.
The scenes. That's
okay,
why I
yeah.
wrote it down. You're all over
I'm sorry, I'm just talking. Okay, so let's talk Corellia.
Yeah. So I said the thing about context. And then I told him at the theater, we were all talking, and I said that Lady Proxima reminded me of the person in charge of
Little Orphan Annie.
Annie? Yeah, what's her name?
I don't know. But I know who you're talking about, and
yeah.
I think you're onto something
just
there.
Like she was like this random alien character that's in charge of all these orphan kids, and I was like, I'm getting a big Annie vibe here. Except she's a giant, like, worm monster.
Yeah.
That can't be in the sun.
I'll admit, I didn't really care for Lady Proxima. I thought she was a little bit too much. But like every Star Wars film kind of has that now. It's like the Rathtars in The Force Awakens, Bor Gullet in Rogue One. It's just something where I'm like, not for me. But it was over like that, so. I
mean, I would have liked it better if they had shown her, like, taking someone down a peg. Like, sure. Killing somebody, because I was like, why is she in charge? Mm-hmm. All like the lackeys that were working for her were, taking people down, but I was like, why is she in charge?
It's a good point. But yeah, so they escape. I thought that was a good chase scene. Mm-hmm. I liked everything on Corellia.
I loved when they're kind of cocked to the side going through that hallway, and you're like, oh man, that's such a Han move, but then just slowly
doesn't work.
Comes to a stop.
That was like the first good laugh where I was like, okay, I'm on board here.
Yeah.
The stuff. Okay, well, first I just want to say I thought Alden was great. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any time where I was taken out of the movie where I'm just like, nah, I'm not buying it. Like, he was a young Han to me. I had no problem with Alden.
Yeah, I loved his smirks and just his attitude. I thought all that was on point.
I did not like the origin of his name. When I didn't think that needed to be a thing where he's like, I don't have people, and the Imperial officer's like, Solo. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like the Star Wars world would have a different name for that. It wouldn't be Solo. I don't know. That just felt a little weird, but it happened so quickly and they moved on so quickly after that. I was like, okay, well, that's how he got his name.
There's kind of a lot of stuff like that where I'm just like, but it's over and you're moving on and you're like, okay, well, forget it, because now we're on Mimban. And like, that was really cool, seeing the Empire fighting. Mm-hmm. I liked Han saying like that they're after the hostiles, and Han said, we're invading their home. We're the hostiles.
Yeah. It's very obvious that he's like, I came here to be a pilot, mm-hmm. and now I'm like on the ground fighting, and I don't really know why we're here or what we're doing or what the plan is exactly. And then that's why he latches on to Beckett and mm-hmm. his crew.
Yeah, I liked Beckett's introduction, and I thought that was all kind of funny. Mm-hmm. That they were wearing dead men's armor and they were just there for the hauler, but he just happened to have a captain thing. I thought that their introduction was good.
Yeah, I liked when Han pointed out that you stole it off a dead man. Like, I loved that line.
Yeah, he's got the street smarts.
Yep.
So yeah, then now we got to get to Han and Chewie, which was good. That was I liked their intro.
I loved the intro of Chewie and like, feed him to the beast.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I bet that's Chewie down there. And I was like, oh, I wonder how like scary he's gonna be. And he was like drenched in like water and mud and like scary, and like there were who knows how many people or droids that
he's
like
killed, and like there was armor down there and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked their introduction. I thought Alden's Shriwook, or Han's Shriwook, I was like, that's a little bit towing the line for me, but again, it was over quickly, and then I liked that they were immediately scheming some way to get out of that. And then the next big laugh for me was when they're back out of the cell, and Han says, "Follow me," and they run in opposite directions, and Han gets yanked. I thought that was great.
Yeah. Yeah, all of Chewie's stuff was really great, and seeing him fight, I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but seeing the Wookiees fight was top notch.
Yeah, well, something I really love is seeing best friends becoming best friends. So I really loved Poe and Finn working together to escape the First Order. And I really loved Han and Chewie working together to escape the pit and all. I was hoping for a little more of that. And they do have a lot of good moments. But honestly, I feel like Finn and Poe had a more emotional, like, I really love when they first get together.
Although that could be just because we didn't exactly know what Chewie was saying.
True.
It could just be
That's
the
very
fact
true.
that he doesn't have actual dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's a little hard to establish a relationship. Like, some of his lines you kind of get, and some of it you're like, context?
I also think, and we'll come back to this, but just Han and Chewie meeting comes with expectations, and it comes with kind of Star Wars baggage, because we've read this story in Legends already, and no matter what, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot to say about this. But
okay, so...
And well, I wanted to say that Finn and Poe had zero expectations for us. It was just an introduction to a friendship, and I didn't have to worry about, like, oh, am I comparing this to what Legends did, or any of that. So, but yeah, so they get on the AT Holler, and they're off to Vandor for the train heist.
Yes.
Which, train heist was great, a lot of fun. I was surprised it happened so early. I think I already said that, but...
It happened fast, too. Like, I feel like we went through it pretty quickly, and, like, I knew what they were after, but then Enfys Nest and her group show up. What are they called?
The Cloud Rider Gang.
The Cloud Rider Gang, yeah. They show up, and I was hoping to get more action out of them. Like, that whole group. We got some good action between Beckett and Enfys Nest, like a little bit on the top of the train. But I remember early on seeing that shot, that like panning shot of Beckett going and using the door as a shield. Cover, yeah. And I was like, oh man,
that was great.
That sequence is going to be bomb. And that was it. That was the whole shot. And I thought, for some reason, I thought there was going to be like a lot more to that shot in the movie, but I still liked it. Yeah,
it was. I thought Enfys was actually really well done when she hops onto the train and rolls, and like she had whatever her weapon was. I thought was really cool. It had like some sonic thing to it, and she's cutting, swiping. I thought that she was great in that scene. I thought that the whole thing where they're tethered to the train and they would like jump off and jump on, and Han had to like untether and go down to the bottom area, and like he and Chewie had to, there was a lot going on, and I thought it was really cool. And they did very clearly explain kind of what needed to happen. They were like, okay, we have to decouple the back part of the train, then we have to decouple the front part of the train, we got to blow the bridge, and we're going to fly away with this thing. Like, I thought that was cool.
I wasn't that surprised that they killed Rio so quickly, because I knew Han had to be in a position to fly pretty early on to kind of prove himself as being the pilot that he keeps talking about.
Yeah.
But that was sad to see him go so quickly.
Yeah, it was a bummer to see him go. Like, they did a good job with his death, where I was kind of like, come on, man, hold it together. Like, you can stay. And like, I thought that maybe he would just be wounded, and then no, he's dead. And then Val's dead too, which that really surprised me. Like, I get casting Jon Favreau as a voice. Like, voice acting is you show up in a recording booth, you record your voice, that's it. But like, I don't know, Tandy Newton's so great that I wanted more from her. I feel like
they wasted.
I feel like they wasted Tandy Newton.
Yeah.
But yeah, train sequence was good. They don't get the hyper. Let's talk about the hyperfuel. First, I think it's kind of funny that some people in The Last Jedi were like, well, since when is fuel a thing in Star Wars? And then they like double down on that and they're like, here's hyperfuel. That's the MacGuffin. I guess they just needed like something really expensive that everyone wanted and
delicate and volatile.
Yeah.
Something that needed to be taken somewhere quickly.
It's
so
a very
the Kessel Run.
Yeah. It's a very kind of Western thing, I guess. But I don't know. I was hoping for a sexier MacGuffin than fuel.
I didn't really have an issue with it, but I mean, I don't care about like whether or not there's fuel in Star Wars.
Yeah. But those are all good points that you made. Like, it's volatile, it's explosive, and then, like, yeah, it puts them on a timer for the Kessel Run. I think those are all good points. Our camera only records for, like, 17 minutes at a time, so there's going to be some breaks.
Where are we at now?
Okay, so we did the train heist, and then he meets back up with Kira.
Yeah.
And Dryden. I liked Dryden.
Yeah.
And, like, he did what you said Lady Proxima should have done. Like, his introduction is him killing a dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, this guy means business. That's all it took.
He had a good vibe as like a bad guy, but he also like wasn't over the top. He was just like, if you can get the job done, we can be friends.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
He wasn't just insane evil. He was like, you failed me? Like, okay, well, we'll try again. You came to me with a plan to make this right, and he respects that.
And I like his collection of items.
Oh, yeah. So many Easter eggs in there. I really had fun picking those out. Like, there's the crystal skull from not Indiana Jones, but from Han Solo and the Lost Legacy, the old Legends book. But the fertility idol from Indiana Jones was in there. There was a Sith holocron. I think some ancient Sith lightsabers.
Wasn't there some kind of crystal skull in Clone Wars or Rebels?
Yeah, they did in the Clone Wars have the Indiana Jones crystal skull.
Oh, okay.
But like that one that was in Dryden's office was straight from Lost Legacy.
Okay.
And we'll talk about Lando's stuff later. Like, yeah, there were a bunch of just references and things to pick out. A lot of fun for someone like me to go through that.
Mm-hmm. And it was cool to see Kira back in a completely different role. Like, we don't know what happened to her, and she's very kind of like standoffish and just like, I don't know, like I kept thinking throughout the movie, like, when are we gonna find out like what exactly she did? Or
I am interested to figure that out. Like, but it's something where they teased a thing where you don't really need to know, and maybe even not knowing is better. Just her being like, I've done some really bad things. You wouldn't look at me the same way if you knew. He's like, when did you get out? I didn't get out. And like, as we find out later, she really did not get out. And
I assume that she was just like his personal assassin, maybe? Or like spy? Infiltrator?
Yeah.
All those things wrapped up in a pretty lady body.
So she joins their crew. They need a very fast ship. They go to Lando, which I guess was on the same planet. That seemed a little convenient.
She was like, I know where to go. And they didn't say exactly what that big place was.
Yeah, it looked like it was the same. It looked like Vandor still, which is convenient.
It's probably just like a Dave and Buster's in Star Wars.
I've liked the Sabat game. I'm really glad, like, they've kind of played it up like, oh, that's the Sabak game, Sabak. That's how Lando says it. But yeah, Lando's introduction was wonderful. That game was a lot of fun. It reminded me of reading them playing against each other in the A.C. Crispin books, which I thought that those Sabak segments in those books were really intense, even though, like, I know what's going to happen. I know eventually he's going to win the Falcon. But I was still like, this is so well done. And that game was really well done. And I was like, I don't want him to win the Falcon this early. I just don't think it makes sense right now. And he didn't. And so I was pleasantly surprised by that. And like, we get to see Lando cheating and stuff. And
I didn't know that Did you know that was going to happen? That he cheated?
Lando?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know he was going to cheat then and there. But it's been implied multiple times in books and comics that both Han and Lando were cheating at the last game.
Okay, yeah, because, like, when I saw that he had, like, that card thing in his sleeve, I was like, oh. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't have made any sense for him to get to win the ship that early. But if you look closely in the trailers, you can see 2 different sabacc games happening, and so you called that pretty early on. Yeah. Like, one of these is going to happen, and he's going to beat Han, and then there's going to be the one at the end where he wins it.
Yeah, we knew that he was going to wager against the Falcon, and I was like, he's not going to win it there. It's going to, like, he's going to fail, and he's going to come back around and try again. But they still meet up with Lando. Donald Glover was everything we thought that he would be. He was fantastic.
Loved him as Lando.
And then we meet... Well, he comes onto their crew. We hear that Beckett killed Aura Singh, which I was just like, oh, okay. Which I'm fine with. I feel like some people are gonna treat that like Akbar dying, where it's like, well, she was a named character and she deserves an on-screen death. It's like, no, she doesn't. It's like
they might make a comic, and well, that's not on screen, but
actually, Beckett is supposed to get a one-off comic soon. That could be exactly what it is. So then we meet L3. Who is,
I really loved L3. It's just like K2 for me. Like, droids with a ton of personality that are hilarious. Like, I loved L3.
I was a little worried about her because like we had K2SO, we've got 000 in the comics. Mm-hmm. We just seem to be getting an abundance of sassy droids that act like droids aren't supposed to. Mm-hmm. So I was a little worried, and she was kind of similar to K2SO, but she was different enough for me.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe she talked about the droid rights a little too much, but that really paid off in the end, so I'm okay with that as well. Like,
I like that Lando kind of just, like, trusts her and, like, puts up with her because she has that, like, amazing map or whatever in her programming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in Last Shot, it's clear that he respects her and has feelings for her. I don't think in the same way that L3 thinks that he does, but they are good friends.
I do like her conversation with Kira, so it's just like...
It's just us girls.
It's just us girls. Let's have some girl talk.
Yeah.
That was cute. Okay, so, yeah, the droid revolution might
so well, we got to get to Kessel,
okay.
Which... Yeah, that was... We'll just hop straight there. And they set up that, you can't just get to Kessel. You have to go through the Maelstrom and do all these specific things. Then we get to Kessel, which is cool to see that planet for the first time in live action.
They do mention the first time they go through Kessel that there could be, like, living things out there.
Yeah. They even kind of show one, sort of.
They kind of plant that idea early on for the giant squid monster thing that we see later.
So the Pikes are on Kessel. I thought that was pretty cool. I wish that we got to see it without the mask on, just because I wanted that. But the Kessel stuff, again, like all this stuff, this movie kind of goes by in a blur, really.
There's so much that happens. I thought Rogue One was like a lot happening fairly quickly, but now that we're talking about it and breaking everything down, like, so much happens.
Yeah. So we get to Kessel. They almost accidentally start a droid revolution where she needs to take a restraining bolt off. So she pops it off and then, like, gets him to move. And she just says, I don't know, like, free your brethren. And then he's like, okay.
So, like, go free your buddies or something. And the droid's like, oh, guess I will.
And it was so goofy and silly, but I was laughing the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, watching them smash things and, like, stomp on computers.
Slowly but surely, they all take their restrictor bolts or whatever off each other, and they're just, like, smashing things, and that one guy hits the, like...
Freedom button. Getting the slave revolt, and then we get to the Wookiees, where we get to actually see Wookiees fight.
Yeah.
And I liked Chewie getting... that he's like, he wants to help Han, but he also wants to help his Wookiees. And like, you see Han go like, yeah, go help your buddies, and like gives him a weapon, and he's like, it's fine. I thought that was a really nice touch. And then, yeah, seeing Chewie go ham on some of those Kessel people was crazy.
That was awesome.
Oh, and we get to see Chewie rip arms off.
Yes.
Finally.
And not on screen, but we hear it and it happens. But I figured they wouldn't do that.
It's a family movie.
On screen.
Yeah.
But then it's funny because he's like,
what do I do with these?
I don't know if I meant to do that.
I never actually did this.
And Han makes a joke about how that would have been a perfect size outfit for him to put on.
Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah, we haven't talked about the humor yet, and I was one of the people that in The Last Jedi thought, these jokes aren't quite landing for me all the time. Some I thought were good, but a lot of them I was like, okay, this is a little too much, too cartoony. And that I didn't have that feeling in Solo. Pretty much every time they went for a joke, it landed for me. I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
So then we get... They pull off their heist, they get all their stuff, and then L3 eats it.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that at all.
I was like, okay, well, she'll get torn apart and they'll just bring her back on the ship and maybe she'll still be there for comedic relief, but she'll be in pieces and nope, she's gone.
Yeah.
She lives in the ship now.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe they'll rebuild her, but then I was like, oh, well, she built herself, so maybe not. But yeah, they wind up putting her brain into the ship, which I need to go back and look at all the times they talk about the Falcon's like computer brain, because like there's a scene in The Empire Strikes Back where 3PO talks to the computer and mentions how fussy the computer is. They mention it in the Last Jedi novelization, which I think, I mean, at that point, Jason Fry knew who was in that computer, so he was doing something specific when he wrote that stuff. But I want to go back and read that stuff, explore those scenes.
Yeah, so like every time they say anything about the Falcon having personality, like she really does.
Yeah, it's L3, and I think that's a pretty neat little thing. So now we're into the Kessel Run, which I thought was very exciting. I liked, this was kind of the moment where we finally get to see Han and Chewie become Han and Chewie.
Yeah, because they get in the, is that when they get in the cockpit together and like everybody in the theater kind of like cheered a little bit when that happened. And
I like that, so Han gets on board. Oh, I did love this shot, and they'd been talking about it before, but he helps Lando, who gets shot carrying L3 back, and then he's covering them and backs up the ramp into the Falcon, which is just something that we'd never seen before. I do think they kind of did a little edit there, but still the idea of it being a one-shot was neat, going from outside to inside of the Falcon.
Yeah, and then they did go like around one side and then around back into the cockpit, so...
They've said that this is like the most extensive Falcon set that they've ever had. But yeah, I like that Han ran in and basically asked for permission to fly the Falcon to Lando. He just kind of gave him a look, and Lando's like, yeah, go. So then he's flying the Falcon. They do the Kessel Run. I kind of wish that there was a little more to it instead of just, it's an Imperial blockade. Oh, there's TIE fighters coming. We gotta run. Like,
the Star Destroyer just kind of came out of nowhere, and that just like... I don't know. I guess they were like, let's put something in there besides the giant monster.
Yeah,
I mean, give them trouble.
They needed a reason to leave the mail, and I guess they also had to get that. They had the Piper fuel that was going to blow up.
They had to take a shortcut either way to make up for lost time, but.
So yeah, I liked the way it was handled. I don't know why the TIE fighters followed them. Like,
oh yeah, we were talking about how they wasted the new TIE fighter variant.
The heavy TIE was just there.
Yeah.
Kind of true of all of them. The AT-DT, the heavy TIE, the range troopers. They're all there, but...
Did we see Tag and Bink?
Oh my goodness.
I thought about that, and I was like, they're in there somewhere. They've got to be in that scene where they're trying to get through.
I bet I know. I know. I'm going to make a guess here. I'm going to guess that they're the guys that grabbed the wrong person when Han was like, he put the hat and the cape on and he was like going to sign up for Imperial duty.
Yeah, because they did...
Someone goes like, sir, we need to ask you some questions.
They did
I
concentrate on that part a little longer than like a normal just random scene. Because the guy was like, huh? What?
I could see them being like the Imperials that bungled that up.
The reason I thought of that was because I would have liked to have gotten a scene of maybe the Imperials on that Star Destroyer, like, talking about, what does this little ship think it's doing? Like, just one little scene. But yeah, so we'll see if Tag and Meek is in it next time we see the movie.
So they go into the Maelstrom. The TIE fighters follow them, and they all get destroyed, not surprisingly. Mm-hmm. The little move that they did to take out the heavy TIE, I did like that.
Yeah.
Where they slide on the ground. And that was another joke I thought was funny, where he's like, what was it, Needles? He's like, the best racer I ever knew, till he died, trying this. And then they kick up all the rocks, and it like blows the windshield of the TIE out, and it just kills the pilot immediately. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. And
like seeing him and Chewie be like, that was awesome. Yeah. I liked that a lot.
And then I was like, okay, so they have to get like a little bit of this into some kind of, not the fuel, but in what did they insert that stuff into? Oh yeah,
the hyperfuel into the reactor core or something.
That was like, okay, I get it. You're giving us a boost. Let's just say that. But then it was like tense, like, oh, Beckett, hurry up.
And I wonder if that's supposed to be like why the Falcon is so fast. If that's like the origin of that, or
maybe like, is that in there forever now?
I guess. I don't know.
Always have a boost.
Like, why doesn't everyone put hyperfuel in their reactors? I don't know.
But
that's unclear.
It was funny that it just kind of shut everything down at first, and they were like, "Oh no."
that was like a perfect Falcon thing to do, where it just shutters down and almost kills them all.
But then it just takes off.
Yeah.
So the Falcon takes off. We're out of the Kessel Run. We get to
Savareen. And like when they landed the Falcon and it's just falling apart, I was like, this is great. Everything with the Falcon I really, really liked. And
just like the look on Lando's face is so perfect, because he's like, my ship.
I hate you and I never want to see you again.
Yeah. And it's all, like, at the time I was like, Lando, you lost your perfect ship. But it's like, he lost L3, he lost
he's having a rough day.
Ship. Like, I felt bad for thinking that was funny.
Part of me was like, oh, I hope this isn't like that thing that, it was a long time ago. I'm sure he's forgotten about that. And I'm glad that it turns out it wasn't. But yeah, so then we're on Savareen, and Enfys Nest shows up, and we basically learn that she's not just a marauder, she is a young rebel. And like, we see Two Tubes and Warwick Davis. I almost called him Willow just because I've been talking about Willow so much lately. But we see, or I guess that was Two Tubes, but
yeah, they all take off their masks, and it turns out that it's like all people that
have been hurt by the Empire.
Yeah, and like Voss specifically, and his like
the Empire and the criminal syndicates and everything.
And yeah, so she kind of like does a little speech, but I guess I wanted more from her. After
seeing her on the train, I was like, oh, she's intimidating and can fight, and was really cool. So yeah, I was hoping to see another action scene from her, and we do kind of get one, but it's brief.
Yeah. But
yeah, Voss shows up. They pull this whole con. I thought the con was really cool, where they just guessed that Beckett was going to betray them, and so they brought the actual stuff. And Voss was like, how did you do it? Like, I wouldn't have been able to tell. And I thought that was a pretty neat little thing. What if he
had just, like, dropped it on the ground? Like, he really thought that stuff was fake. What if he just, like, tossed it over his shoulder and blew everybody up?
I don't know if it's that volatile, but part of me was thinking we were about to get a Breaking Bad moment where he's like, this is not meth, and, like, blows everything up.
Yeah. So it's the real stuff, and then we find out who the like traitor is, and it, like you said, it took forever for the camera pan to happen, and it's like, who's it gonna be? Oh, it's Beckett.
He's like, will my secret informant please enter? And it's like, oh, it's Beckett. Yeah, and then like we linger on the door. I'm like, it's Beckett. Bring him in. Yeah, there he is. Mm. And like the whole, I told you not to trust anyone. It's like, yeah, I know. Like that was a little heavy-handed. Like I know. But that scene, like, I did like that. Okay, they got all of his guards, his personal army out of the ship, except for like those two guys. I thought that action scene in the little room was cool. Mm-hmm. I liked that once Beckett left, everyone immediately like dove for cover. Mm-hmm. I liked that Kira got to outsmart Voss a little bit. And then I guess now we got to talk about the big reveal, the big surprise cameo. Because Han goes to get Chewie and Beckett. Mm-hmm. And we see that, I think what was being implied is that Darth Maul is now the leader of Crimson Dawn. And that, like, Beckett was one of his underlings. So she reported, she's like, I regret to inform you that Dryden Voss is dead. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Maul thing, unfortunately, someone in our YouTube comments spoiled that for me. So I've known that since like the premiere, and
that sucks.
I had fun watching your reaction to it.
I didn't know, and like as soon as she like popped the ring in, I was like, and then like the gates or whatever thing closed. I thought she was just gonna like take off and leave them or something. Like, I didn't know what was going to happen. But, so, we see, like, the legs of the hologram and, like, her talking to it. And I was like, no, that's not the Emperor. I was like, voice sounds familiar. And, yeah, like, hands to the mouth as soon as, like, they did the reveal and it was him. And I was like, oh,
we were kind of laughing afterwards though, because like he reveals it's Darth Maul, and then he like brings his lightsaber out too, just like to really hammer it home. It's like, Kira knows it's you. There's no reason
he could have been
to ignite like, your lightsaber too.
Doing something like he could have been interrogating someone and been like, hold that thought. I've got to take this call. And like,
yeah.
I don't know.
We'll be working very closely together. It's me, Darth Maul. Just want to make sure you got that.
Yeah.
I know it's for people. I mean, because honestly, I really like that they did that. I never, ever would have guessed that they would do that, because it's kind of like Lucasfilm saying, sure hoped you watched Clone Wars. I mean, at this casual point, audience.
At this point, his character's been in Clone Wars, Rebels, and he was like one of the main villains in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but so, I mean, to the normal person like that just watches the movies,
I mean,
they'd be like, didn't that guy get cut in half?
That's true, yeah. People that didn't know anything except for him and the Phantom Menace would be like, wait, he's supposed to be dead.
But I mean, something that I have been saying is that Lucasfilm kind of has to tiptoe into this as they expand their movie storytelling. And I've been saying, I don't think they're going to dive into something like that. So I was very surprised that they were like, here's something that is going to confuse you if you haven't kept up with the Clone Wars or Rebels or any of this. Like, I'm sure that there were people that went, hold on, what? And now I get to do a video about it, and hopefully all those confused people will understand better.
Yeah. And so she does that. She takes off. Han's sad about it.
Which that was kind of... I felt a lot of A.C. Crispin in this story. Like kind of a condensed version of the Han Solo trilogy thematically. There were some things where like Bria from the Han Solo trilogy was his kind of the one that got away. And there are some good parallels between Bria and Kira. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so she leaves. Han catches up with Beckett and shoots him. And
that actually surprised me. Like, he had his gun out and they were talking, and I thought he was just gonna let him leave. But no,
I was so terrified. I was happy that he did it. I was happy he shot him. And I liked that he ran over and, like, they still had a nice moment. It was kind of like Obi-Wan and Maul, actually.
That's what I thought of, yeah.
But I was terrified that Beckett was, like, about to be like, your last lesson is to always shoot first. Blah. And I was like, do not say that. Just die. Like, Han clearly knows that.
Yeah.
I didn't want some direct call out to shooting first where everyone'd be like, brr. I'm just glad they didn't do that.
Yeah. So they go back and give that stuff, the rest of the bounty or whatever, to Enfys Nest and her crew. Mm-hmm. And she gives them, like, a tip. A little tiny little tip.
I think he said it was worth 10,000 credits.
Yeah, I guess.
That's what he said.
I was just like, man, they had a lot of that stuff. She could have given them a little more.
So then they take that and they go find Lando and they enter that other Sabacc game. I thought that them catching up with him was great. Because, like, Lando is a little bit like, oh, sorry I abandoned you. No hard feelings, right? And then, like, he kind of intimidates him. And then he does the same thing that Lando does to him on Cloud City, like act like he's going to attack, but then hug him. I thought that was all really great. Mm-hmm. And while he's doing that, he pulls out his cheater card.
He sees the card and he pulls it out. And
that gives him the upper hand. One thing that I thought was a little odd, though, and this... like, I was expecting Han's dice to be used in the game because in the Force Awakens visual dictionary it says that those dice were used in the game, but
they were used as a good luck charm, maybe.
I guess you could argue that. But it said it was in a very specific variant called Corellian Spike. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I was expecting the dice to play into it somehow and they didn't, which is fine. Like, I kind of view... when you're comparing the reference books to a movie, like, the movie overwrites a reference book. Reference books are like, they fill in fun little gaps here and there. And at the time, they were probably just like, oh, let's write something fun about Han's gold dice. Mm-hmm. And then they wind up, like, becoming more and more significant, like in The Last Jedi and then in Solo. And so that becomes an irrelevant fact.
Or maybe they got used and they just didn't show it.
Yeah, it's also true. Like, that could easily be true.
Because, like, how do you use dice that's tied together?
Right.
As a board game player, I'm like, I don't know how that works.
That's a good point.
I don't know how I like that, but anyways.
Something I haven't said yet is that everything that Lando said almost was a reference to his adventures, the Lando Calrissian adventures.
Him, like, talking to his little diary thing.
That was great. He talks about Ocean. He talks about meeting the Sharu. And he says that he and L3 did that. So L3 is basically the new version of Buffy Raw from the Lando Calrissian adventures. He talks about I can't remember the last one's name, but he talks about the nebula. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there were a lot of fun little references like that. But
so then it's just they jump in the Falcon
and take off, and that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no reference to Chewie's life debt, which I was surprised at that.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's implied, and maybe Chewie said it.
Could have said it and we just
along the line. I kept thinking about that, like, in his dialogue, which he actually had dialogue in the script. I was like, maybe somewhere in there he was like,
by the way, life debt.
By the way, I owe you my life. We're in this together now. And
I feel like that, I don't know, maybe he just decides to do it over time. I still think that would have been nice to see on screen because, like, even in canon, in, like, books, they have talked about how Chewie owes him his life for saving him from slavery. So maybe it happens again and, like, the Mimban thing wasn't, I don't know.
Maybe they just didn't want to go into the idea of life debts and that, like, being a thing. Yeah,
there are a lot of issues. Like, one of my friends was asking, so did they just change the rules of Sabacc? Like, they didn't have the interference field, the cards didn't change or anything, and I was like, well, you can't sit down and explain the rules of Sabacc to
an
audience. Like,
probably,
they just have to sit down and start playing.
The audience is just like, okay, this is just Star Wars poker.
Right. That's all they needed to know. And yeah, I guess, I mean, I don't think the rules of Sabacc have changed. I think it's just that they had a physical copy out wherever they were, and they didn't have the interference field, so they just used physical cards, and that's it. But
I'm sure, like, someplace like Maz's Castle had, like, the actual fancy, like, full-on Sabacc proper.
Kind of the same way in Rogue One we saw a physical Dedrick set, and then we saw the hologram one here. But
yeah. Oh,
we've been talking for, like, almost 50 minutes. So.
My mouth hurts. I don't talk this much.
It's been good, though. Like, I feel like I've worked through even some of my issues with it, and I want to see it again.
Yes. We'll have our notebooks. We'll take notes.
I did bring a notebook. I didn't take any notes until after the movie, and then I tried to write down as much stuff as I could remember off the top of my head. But
yeah,
it was a fun adventure.
It was really fun, funny, like, enjoyable. Like, it was a delight to watch, but when we were comparing it to the other movies with our friends afterwards, I was like, I still liked Rogue One better.
I think I did too.
But, like,
although
really
I remember getting out of Rogue One and kind of feeling the same way and having to kind of
I loved Rogue One.
Decide.
I don't know why.
The thing about Rogue One is it ends on such an insane high note. Like, the whole last half on Scarif is nonstop awesome, and then, like, you walk out and the last thing you saw was Vader doing his Vader thing. Like, Solo didn't really have that. It was just all the way through a fun ride.
Yeah.
And I guess Maul would be that kind of the big moment, but it just didn't have the same impact. And like you said, on the ride home, it just didn't count as much as The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens. It's just like a one-off movie that might turn into sequels. I hope they don't really go that way.
Yeah, I don't either. But, like, I was saying, a lot of people say, oh, you shouldn't have to see a film more than once to know if you like it or not. Well, if you're in the kind of business that we are, and you have to talk extensively about, you know, the content of the film and, like, form a really, really well-rounded opinion, I think that that's valid to be able to need to see it more than once to really grasp how you feel about something like that. And, like, especially with everything that happened in that movie, there was so much going on. I do try to go kind of off of my, just how I felt walking out of it. And I walked out and I was happy with it. Yeah. Especially considering all the behind the scenes drama. And, like, we had kind of our group of friends, we had like 15 people with us, and it ran the gamut. Like, there were people who loved it, and there were people that were like, I thought it was kind of cheesy and not great. And so, like, we have the whole I think there was just one person that said it was one person cheesy. Like, didn't like it. Yeah. And then everyone else, we were just kind of trying to compare, but we had a good spread of opinions. I do, like, my first thoughts when I came out of the theater after seeing Rogue One were, man, the CGI was really distracting, but otherwise, like, it was a great movie. And I'm just thinking, like, out of all the movies aside from the originals, I could put The Force Awakens or Rogue One on, like, in the background and just have it on constantly and always be excited to see it. Yeah, I mean, this is a very rewatchable film. I mean, it's just easy. It's not like The Last Jedi is a very heavy film. And this one is more just kind of like fun little adventure. So I could see us, just having it on. But I think we'll wrap that up because now I have to write and record an actual review. What time is it? Probably like midnight. I have to make flashcards. You gotta help me study for the Schmodown. It's 11:45, and I got a review that needs to come out in 9 hours and 15 minutes. But let us know what you think of this. I mean, it was fun to just kind of work through it and talk freeform. Who was your favorite character? Who did you think? Yeah, of course, put your thoughts in the comments of Patreon. Worst character, in your opinion, Yeah, let us know.
And if you haven't already, if you haven't already, we've got the Q&A thread going, and I'm going to be answering those like tomorrow for the Q&A video that'll come out on Saturday, but...
It's giving us a flashing time thingy.
Well, then we gotta go.
All right.
Thanks for watching, guys.